Hello, MA final students. Of course, my MA previous, the lovely batch of my MA previous, I welcome you. The best thing about welcoming you here is, I have two reasons to actually say this. One is that we are on the way to get rid of COVID, which is a very great thing. And number two, you guys have not appeared for your MA previous exam and come to MA final. I'm sure most of you are not liking it. But as they say, Jahi Vidhi Rakhe Ram Tahi Vidhi Rahiye. The best way to, as the Lord wants, we'll have to be like that only. We'll have to live like that only. Interestingly, I was wanting to tell you that I'm going to take two papers with you. One is criticism, which is paper 5. And I'm going to take paper 9B with you, which is American literature. American literature is going to be very interesting because there you have amazing, lovely poems by Robert Frost and my favorites like Emily Dickinson. Of course, criticism. Now, that is something that is going to be a little difficult. And how difficult? Out of the 9 papers that we teach, I guess criticism is 1:8. It is as difficult as that. Not trying to scare you at all. We are going to do at least 5 critics from that paper, which is we are going to start with Aristotle, which is about 3,000 years back. Then we come to the 20th century, and we do Wordsworth, Coleridge. Then we that is the 19th century. Then you come to the 20th century, which is T.S. Eliot, and of course Matthew Arnold also before that. Then you come to T.S. Eliot, and of course the postmodernists. We can do Derrida if you like, and then the feminist Ellen Showalter. Now, children, be very clear about what criticism is. Criticism is definitely not what you understand of criticism as. Criticism as a paper is not about, in Hindi you say आलोचनात्मक टिप्पणी. Doesn't mean कि आप किसी की बुराई कर रहे हो. It does not mean talking ill of anybody. It means an analytical study, an analysis, how you analyze a poem, a piece of prose, a piece of poetry, anything that is literary, how you analyze it, a piece of art, sculpture maybe, architecture, how you analyze it, what are the very important points which may take you there, like how do you come to the conclusion कि boss ये poem बहुत अच्छी है. Gulzar is a very great writer. Maybe Shabana Azmi's husband, I don't remember his name, is not that good. Now, what are the parameters? What are the standards that we are using to make Javed Akhtar not as great as Gulzar? Or why are we saying that, Ghalib is the only person who wrote that beautifully? Or why does Kabir stand unparalleled in the history of literature, whatever literature you talk of? Why Shakespeare stands out in English literature, and so many centuries down the line also we have not been able to come anywhere closer to Shakespeare. When you think of that analysis, when you think of why we should be saying that this particular piece of literature or art or this particular piece of sculpture is better than the other, why do we say it? Why would we say Taj Mahal is like the best, the most amazing, the most, the foreigners have said that angels are supposed to have created it. What are those standards by which we get absolutely taken away, absolutely amazed? And then why is that we feel, these lines by Tulsidas, these lines by Kabir will never be written again. This Ghalib, my God, what does he write? Oh God, look at Gulzar. It is just so amazing. Piece of music. Why do you might not be very conversant with classical music, but then you are hearing Bhimsen Joshi, and when he takes that alap, you just go to the other world. And that expression, that particular thing of analysis, that particular point of standardization is criticism. It might sound very abstract to you at the moment. It might sound, okay, ma'am, what you are talking, we are not being able to understand. But definitely, whilst we come across the various writers of critical studies in English, you'll definitely get a hang of what I'm trying to tell you in an introduction, in this kind of an introduction. This is definitely an introduction. So this is how important it is to analyze, to set standards, to set parameters, to set rules, to set regulations, to see what are these rules and regulations which govern a particular type of, art, which can be anything, as I've been repeating again and again. So what are those parameters which lead you to that amazing, that something that is created and you call it amazing, whether it be poetry, गाना हो, गज़ल हो, आर्किटेक्चर हो, sculpture हो, पेंटिंग हो, you just something that leaves you spellbound, something. अब क्या होता है बेटा, when you talk of Aristotle's we do poetics. Poetics was in the Greek culture. Tragedies were a very great. People were fascinated by the tragedies. They were enacted on the stages. So basically, Aristotle, Sophocles, Euripides, Aeschylus, all these people were the writers of tragedy, and tragedy writers, and of course they were writers of comedy also, but tragedy was supposed to be more loved by the Grecian Roman people, more than anything else. So Aristotle in his Poetics has set standards for what a good tragedy is. What are the rules that govern a writing of a good tragedy? What are the fundamentals which govern a good tragedy? So in poetics we do it's as simple as that he's in those times, we're talking about 3,500 years back, when tragedies were enacted, when, of course, I would never say that culture was not ripe. In fact, it was riper than ours. I would believe that in India or in Greece or in Rome, their culture was much more riper than ours is. So basically, how to put it in words, language was developing, and they were trying to put things in words. They were trying to put thoughts in words. They were trying to put what they thought was the rules and regulations. They're trying to build a society, build rules and regulations, and that is why they were trying to put some rules and regulations to the fact of Aristotle. Like people like Aristotle were trying to put rules and regulations to education, academia, and if in academics tragedy is taught, literature is taught, they were trying to put rules to what a good tragedy is. You come down, you do a lot of, you in your course you have Longinus and Aristotle. Then you have Natya Shastra. Personally, I am not very conversant with Natya Shastra, in all honesty. I have just read few, translations of the Natya Shastra. If you insist and if you think I should do it, we will do it, definitely do it. But I would love to come down to the Romantics, because this is where majorly after Dryden, the Romantics picked up criticism, in which very importantly, when I teach poetry to the undergraduates also, I always underline that Romantics might not be considered as very great writers today in the 21st century. A T.S. Eliot might just say, they were bogus, they were not good writers at all, because they used to write from their hearts. Poetry is not written from your heart. It has to be an amalgamation of the mind and the heart. And that kind of a ratio that T.S. Eliot has tried to bring it out for us in the 20th century. Of course, they were not adhering to that. But the first and the foremost, if I feel, that there was something that is a very great critical writing, what would that be? For me, it would be the lyrical ballads written by Wordsworth and Coleridge, when they jointly declared that whatever was Augustan is not bought by them. They, rule by rule, regulation by regulation, they completely rejected the Augustans, the neoclassicals, or what you call the writers like Dryden, Swift and Pope. Swift, Pope and Dryden, well, they say about Dryden, Dryden found English brick, he left it marble. You will not deny it after doing Absalom and Achitophel. You would not deny Pope after doing Rape of the Lock, that one of the greatest humorist satirists ever. They were writing in heroic couplets, very difficult to tame a language which is developing, to tame it in heroic couplet, and then giving you the best of humor, the best of satires. They were writing political pamphlets, but they were writing so highly literary pamphlets. So like, if you were just a literary genius, you will fall in for people like Dryden and Pope. But if you were doing criticism, maybe, if you were trying to capture criticism, what would you say? A person like me who has traveled almost 40 years into literature now would say lyrical ballads, because lyrical ballads point by point tarnishes, terminates the Augustan ethos. Now, what is the Augustan rule? What was the Augustan rule? The Augustan rule was poetry is only for the gentry. It is not for common people. Common people don't have the brains to understand it. One. Number two, poetry is elevated and should always be written in a very ornamented, very, very high-flown language. Number three, it has to be bound by meter, in which, because they were writing such tight heroic couplets. And fourth, they wanted poetry, because poetry is for intellectuals, it has to have subjects which are high standard, which means the dukes, the duchess, the king, courts, conspiracies, and all that. Now, what an amazing process of criticism is happening in England in this century, children. That these amazingly very dominant, very arrogant writers like Dryden are holding the political and the cultural and the literary scenario of England. You know, and there comes your Wordsworth, your Coleridge, and of course the younger ones, your Byron, your Keats, your Shelley. And what do? They completely reject the typical, very typical Anglican, English arrogance. They say nothing doing. Literature, poetry is for common people. It has to be written in the common language of man so that the common people understand it. Number three, it should be written for the common people. That everybody on earth has the right to enjoy poetry. Nobody can say that it is only for the higher class. And consequently, that literature then should take into account not lords and ladies and courts and conspiracies, but it should take into account what? It should take into account that lily that blooms, that rivulet that flows, that mountain that is blue, the sky that is starry. Anything that you and me get touched by, anything and everything like that for them would become poetry. So all those rules by writing Biographia Literaria and by writing lyrical ballads, both Coleridge and Wordsworth got together to completely change the wave of English literature. Okay? Now this is something, if I'm talking about Aristotle, that is about 2,000-3,000 years back. So, we are not discussing him on the personalization and depersonalization theory of T.S. Eliot. Now I will just introduce you how thought process grows. This is a very heart se sochne wala Wordsworth. This is a very sentimental and emotional Wordsworth and Coleridge who think about all of us. Why should the Shalini and Deepa and Deepti and Deepika, why should they not read literature? Why should they be, only Sonia Gandhis or Priyanka Gandhis to do literature? Why can't ordinary people be doing literature? Okay, so now, interestingly, these people were thinking from their hearts and they were writing from their hearts. Comes 20th century and comes the stalwart T.S. Eliot. 1928 receives the Nobel Award for Wasteland, where he has amalgamated a huge poem only by taking titles of different languages and books. He ends the Wasteland by saying Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Okay, he has taken completely Data Damyata Daya Dvam from the Kathopanishad. Now, how amazing is that this man who was born in America, got married in the UK, the world calls him the greatest literary giant of the 20th century, comes and tells you, no boss, Milton and Wordsworth and these people did a lot of damage to English literature. And then he comes with this theory of depersonalization. He completely rejects Wordsworth's theory of letting loose of emotions. What did Wordsworth say? What is his definition of poetry? He says it is the spontaneous outburst of emotions recollected in the moments of tranquility. T.S. Eliot says nothing doing. no emotions, no recollection, no collection, no tranquility, nothing. And he gives you an example of sulfur and oxide. He said, as in a test tube you mix sulfur and oxygen and get sulfur oxide, it neither has sulfur in it nor oxygen. This is exactly the way a poet's brain works. It is a receptacle of all the feelings in the world, all the thoughts in the world, and it is a very spontaneous, a very natural process in which these